The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure of gleaming metal and crystal that orbited the diplomatic world called Convergence Prime. Inside its great hall, representatives from 200 alien species sat in their designated seats, arranged in circular tiers that rose toward the domed ceiling. Holographic displays flickered in the air, showing star charts and resource reports. The atmosphere hummed with dozens of different languages, all translated in real time by the chamber's ancient technology. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in the human section, a small area near the back of the hall. She had held this position for 5 years now, and she knew her place well. Humanity was barely noticed here. When she spoke, the other species listened with polite patience, then moved on to more important matters. Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for 50 years, but they remained what they had always been: newcomers, primitives, a species still too young and too violent to truly matter. Today's session focused on expansion rights in the Perseus arm of the galaxy. Several species wanted to claim the mineral-rich systems there, but humanity had already established 12 colonies in that region. The Kelvin Empire, a proud reptilian species that controlled 70 star systems, argued that human presence in the Perseus arm violated ancient territorial agreements. Ambassador Chen waited for her turn to speak. She prepared her response carefully, knowing that whatever she said would likely be dismissed. The Kelvin representative, a tall being with copper-colored scales and cold yellow eyes, gestured with his clawed hand at the holographic display. "These human colonies are illegal," he declared. His voice amplified through the chamber. "They settled in regions that were marked for future Kelvin expansion 300 years ago, before humans even left their home planet." Chen activated her microphone. The Perseus arm was designated as open territory in the Council Charter of 2891. Our colonies followed all proper protocols. We filed the necessary documentation and waited the required protocols. The Kelvin interrupted, a dismissive click in his throat. "Humans always hide behind protocols and rules, yet your history shows nothing but violation of such things. Your species spent thousands of years in constant warfare. You nearly destroyed yourselves with atomic weapons, and now you ask us to trust your respect for boundaries." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Chen felt the familiar frustration building in her chest, but she kept her expression neutral. She had heard these arguments before. Humanity's violent past was always thrown at them, as if other species had evolved peacefully. She knew the Kelvins had conquered their empire through brutal military campaigns, but no one mentioned that. Before she could respond, a deep chime echoed through the chamber. All conversations stopped. The great doors at the far end of the hall began to open, their mechanisms grinding with the weight of age. Chen frowned. These doors only opened for the most important arrivals. 3 figures entered the chamber, moving with slow, deliberate steps. They were archivists, members of an ancient insectoid species that had been part of the council for longer than any other. Their bodies were covered in dark chitinous plates, and their multiple eyes gleamed with an intelligence that made even the oldest species uncomfortable. The archivists rarely left their vast library stations. They were the keepers of galactic history, the catalogers of every species, every war, every rise and fall of civilizations across millions of years. The council president, a crystalline being that pulsed with inner light, rose from the central platform. "Honored archivists, your presence is unexpected. We are in the middle of territorial negotiations." The lead archivist clicked its mandibles together, producing a sound that the translators converted to words. "We apologize for the interruption, President. However, we bring information that supersedes current discussions, information regarding the species called humanity." Every eye in the chamber turned toward Chen. She felt her heart rate increase. What could the archivists possibly want with humanity? They had never shown interest in Earth before. "We have completed a linguistic and historical analysis," the archivist continued, "spanning our entire database. This analysis concerns the human homeworld, the planet they call Earth. We have discovered something that the Council must know immediately." The President's light flickered with what might have been concern. "Please continue." The archivist moved to the center of the chamber and the holographic displays shifted. Images appeared in the air above them. Star charts, ancient texts, fragments of dead languages. In our archives, we maintain records of 847 extinct civilizations. These species rose, flourished, and vanished across the last 2 million years of galactic history. We know this, the Kelvin representative said impatiently. The archives are famous. What does this have to do with humans? Everything, the archivist replied. We have found references to the human homeworld in the records of these extinct species. Not just a few references, all of them. Every single one of these civilizations encountered the planet Earth at some point in their history. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. That seemed impossible. Earth had only been part of galactic civilization for 50 years. How could ancient species have known about it? The archivist continued, its voice steady and emotionless. More significantly, we have found that each of these civilizations gave Earth a specific designation. They each had a name for it in their own languages. We have translated these names. The holographic display changed, showing a list of words in glowing script. Chen read them, her mouth going dry. The Garden of Knives, Cradle of the Reapers, the Predator World, Death's Nursery, the Hunting Ground, World of Endless War, the Place Where Killers Are Born, the Planet That Makes Monsters. The list went on, hundreds of names, all saying the same thing in different ways. This cannot be correct, the president said, its light dimming. These civilizations existed thousands, even millions of years apart. They could not have all known about one primitive world. Yet they did, the archivist said, and there is more. In the final transmissions of many of these species, in their last desperate messages before their extinction, they mentioned Earth. They sent warnings. Warnings to stay away from the third planet orbiting a yellow star in what you now call Sector 771. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions, demanded explanations, called for proof. Chen sat frozen in her seat, trying to process what she was hearing. The archivist waited patiently for silence, then continued. We request a closed session to present our full findings. This information is sensitive. It concerns the nature of humanity itself, and what their presence in the galaxy might mean for all of us. The president looked around the chamber, then at Chen. For the first time in 5 years, she saw something other than dismissal in the gazes directed at humanity's section. She saw uncertainty. She saw the beginning of fear. Very well, the president said. We will convene a closed session immediately. Ambassador Chen, you will attend as humanity's representative. Council leadership and military commanders only. Everyone else is dismissed. As the chamber began to empty, Chen stood on shaking legs. The Kelvin representative passed by her, and for once he did not look at her with contempt. He looked at her the way prey looks at a predator it has only just noticed. The archivist approached her directly. Ambassador Chen, we mean no offense to your species. We are simply presenting historical data. However, you should prepare yourself. What we are about to show the Council will change everything. The galaxy has lived in ignorance of Earth's true nature for a very long time. That ignorance ends today. Chen followed the archivist toward the secure archive section, her mind racing. What had they found? What did ancient extinct civilizations know about Earth that humanity itself did not know? And why did every single one of them fear her home planet enough to name it after death? She was about to find out, and something told her that after today humanity would never be dismissed again. Whether that was a good thing or a terrible thing remained to be seen. The secure archives chamber was much smaller than the main council hall, but far more impressive. The walls were lined with data storage crystals that glowed faintly in the dim light, each one containing the recorded history of entire civilizations. The air felt heavy here, thick with the weight of millions of years of accumulated knowledge. Ambassador Chen sat at a curved table with 15 other beings, the council president, military commanders from the major powers, and several senior diplomats. The archivists stood at the front of the room, their insectoid forms casting strange shadows. The lead archivist activated the display system. Images filled the air before them, three-dimensional and startlingly clear. What we are about to show you represents 10,000 years of research across our entire database. We began this investigation by accident, during a routine cataloging of extinct species communications. We found a pattern, a disturbing pattern. The first image showed a planet, blue and green covered in swirling white clouds. Chen recognized it immediately. Earth. This image comes from the archives of the Vrin Empire, the archivist explained. They were the dominant power in this galaxy 4,000 years ago, controlling over 300 systems. Their civilization lasted for 12,000 years before their collapse. This photograph was taken by a Vrin survey ship approximately 8,000 years ago. The image changed, showing text in an alien script. The translation appeared below it in glowing letters. Survey Report 447 Alpha, third planet of yellow dwarf star, Sector 771. Water world with oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. Extensive biological activity detected. Recommend immediate quarantine. No landing authorized. Classification extreme hazard world. A simple survey, the archivist said. They scanned Earth from orbit, detected life, and left. But look at their classification. They did not mark it as uninhabitable. They marked it as a hazard. Why would a planet covered in life be considered dangerous? The Kelvin military commander, a scarred veteran named Throck, leaned forward. Perhaps they detected primitive weapons? Hostile species? That is what we thought at first, the archivist replied. But then we found more records. Many more. The display changed rapidly, showing document after document. Chen's eyes widened as she read the dates. 10,000 years ago. 20,000. 50,000. Hundreds of different species spanning vast stretches of time, all with records of Earth. The pattern is consistent, the archivist continued. Every species that discovered Earth examined it from a distance, and every single one concluded the same thing. Stay away. But why? We needed to know, so we analyzed their biological surveys in detail. A new image appeared, a rotating three-dimensional model of Earth's biosphere, but something was wrong with it. The colors were strange. The data markers were clustered in ways that looked unnatural. This is a composite analysis created from surveys conducted by 17 different species over the course of 40,000 years. None of these species knew about the others' surveys. Yet they all found the same thing. Observe. The archivist highlighted specific data points. Earth's surface contains the highest concentration of predator species ever recorded on any planet in the known galaxy. The ratio of predators to prey organisms is completely inverted from every other life-bearing world. Even the plant life on Earth has evolved aggressive defense mechanisms, toxins, thorns, chemical weapons. Chen felt her colleague's eyes turning toward her. She kept her gaze on the display, her face carefully neutral. The survey that concerns us most, the archivist said, comes from the Korath Dominion. They existed approximately 50,000 years ago. They were exceptional xenobiologists known for their detailed planetary studies. They sent a research team to Earth's surface. They spent 3 years studying the biosphere before fleeing. This is their final report. A long document appeared, but the archivist highlighted specific sections. Every organism on this planet is optimized for killing. The apex predator is a species of bipedal pack hunters with unusual intelligence for animals. They use tools and coordinated tactics. They can pursue prey for days without stopping. They heal from injuries that would kill most species. Even their digestive system is designed to extract energy from nearly any organic matter. This is not natural evolution. Someone designed this world. Someone created a testing ground for the most efficient killers possible. We recommend immediate planetary sterilization before the apex predator develops technology. If this species ever reaches the stars, they will be unstoppable. The chamber fell silent. Chen felt her hands trembling. She clasped them together under the table. That apex predator, the archivist said quietly, was humanity. 50,000 years ago, your ancestors were still hunting with stone tools. Yet the Korath recognized what you would become. This is speculation, the president said, though its light flickered with uncertainty. Evolution produces many forms. Perhaps Earth simply developed differently. Perhaps, the archivist agreed. But there is more, much more. We found records of 13 different species that attempted to establish colonies on Earth. Not recently. Long ago, before humanity developed civilization, they thought they could claim this resource-rich planet for themselves. New images appeared. Ruins. Ancient structures covered in vegetation, worn by time, but clearly artificial. Chen had seen some of these places before in archaeological journals. They were considered mysterious, attributed to unknown ancient human cultures. These are not human constructions, the archivist said. They are the remains of alien settlements. Each one was abandoned suddenly, usually within a few decades of establishment. We have found logs from 2 of these colonies. Would you like to hear what they recorded? No one spoke. The archivist continued. The Catharan hive attempted to colonize Earth 12,000 years ago. They were an insectoid species, powerful and numerous. They established mining operations and ignored the primitive humans living nearby. The humans at that time had barely discovered agriculture. They seemed harmless. The Catharan thought they would simply avoid the dangerous predators and harvest the planet's resources. The display showed an ancient video recording, grainy and damaged, but still visible. Strange insect-like beings worked at a mining complex. In the background, barely visible, human figures watched from the tree line. This is the last transmission from that colony, the archivist said. 6 months after this recording, the Catharan sent a relief ship to the colony. They found it destroyed. Every Catharan was dead. They never established another colony on Earth. What killed them? Throck asked, his scales rippling with tension. Humans. The archivist replied simply. Primitive Stone Age humans. The Catharan had advanced weapons, armor, technology. The humans had rocks and sharpened sticks. Yet the humans won. Because that is what Earth creates. It creates survivors. It creates hunters who never give up, never stop, never break. Chen cleared her throat. May I speak? The president gestured for her to continue. With respect, Chen said carefully, you are describing humanity as if we are monsters, but we are just people. We evolved on a difficult planet, yes, but we developed art, music, philosophy, compassion. We are not just killers. The archivist tilted its head, multiple eyes focusing on her. We did not say you were monsters, Ambassador. We said you were survivors. The most efficient survivors the galaxy has ever seen, and that is what terrifies these ancient records. Because survival instinct, taken to its extreme, becomes something very dangerous. Another image appeared. This one showed a star chart with a highlighted route. The Vryn Empire, which we mentioned earlier, did not just avoid Earth. They marked it in their navigation charts. They created an exclusion zone around your solar system that lasted for thousands of years, and in their final days, when their empire was collapsing, they sent one last transmission to all Vryn ships. Text appeared, simple and direct. To all Vryn vessels, avoid Sector 771. The Predator world remains forbidden. If you encounter ships from that system, do not engage. Do not provoke. Flee at maximum speed. This is our final warning. We did not listen to those who came before us. That was our mistake. Do not repeat it. The Vryn Empire lasted 12,000 years, the archivist said softly. They conquered hundreds of worlds. They survived 3 separate galactic wars, but they feared Earth enough to warn their descendants even in their final hours. The Kelvin commander stood abruptly. Why are you showing us this? What is the purpose? The purpose, the archivist replied, is truth. For 50 years, humanity has been part of this council. We have treated them as junior members, as primitives who need guidance. But these records suggest something different. They suggest that humanity is not primitive at all. They are exactly what they were designed to be. Perfect survivors, perfect hunters, and now they are spreading through the galaxy. Chen stood as well, her voice firm despite her racing heart. Designed? What does that mean? The archivist was silent for a moment. Then all 3 of them looked at each other, mandibles clicking in what might have been communication. Finally, the lead archivist spoke. There is one more thing we must show you, one final piece of evidence that explains everything. But once you see it, there will be no going back. The truth about Earth, about humanity's origin, cannot be unknown once revealed. Council President, do we have permission to continue? The crystalline being pulsed with agita. The image that filled the archives chamber was ancient beyond comprehension. It showed a massive structure floating in the void of space, so large that planets looked like small toys beside it. The structure was geometric, perfect and utterly alien. Its surface reflected no light but seemed to absorb it, creating a darkness that hurt to look at. Symbols covered every surface, mathematics and language intertwined in patterns that made Ambassador Chen's head ache. This, the lead archivist said, is a forerunner installation. Or rather, this is what we believe was a forerunner installation. The image was captured 2 million years ago by a species whose name translates roughly as the first ones. They were exploring the edges of the galaxy when they found this. They never discovered what it was for, but they documented everything they could before their civilization fell. The Kelvan commander, Throck, leaned closer to the display. I have heard legends of the Forerunners. Every species has myths about those who came before, but no one has ever found proof they existed. Until now, the archivist replied. We have found 3 other references to this structure in our archives, each from a different extinct civilization. They all describe it the same way. A construction that defies physics, powered by forces we do not understand and placed in orbit around one specific system. The display zoomed out, showing the structure's location on a star map. Chen's breath caught in her throat. She recognized the coordinates. Everyone in the room did. It was in your solar system, the archivist continued. Orbiting at the edge, beyond the furthest planets. But it is not there anymore. According to the most recent survey conducted 8,000 years ago by the Vrin, the structure had vanished. No debris, no trace. Simply gone. The president's crystalline form pulsed with rapid patterns. What was its purpose? That is what we needed to understand, the archivist said. So we analyzed all the data we could find. The first ones managed to scan the structure's energy output before fleeing. Those scans revealed something extraordinary. The installation was not just in your solar system by chance. It was connected to Earth itself, directly connected through gravitational manipulation and energy transmission that we still do not understand. New images appeared, showing complex diagrams of Earth's orbit, magnetic field, and even its tectonic activity. Lines of energy connected the planet to where the structure had been. The first ones believed this installation was regulating Earth, the archivist explained, controlling its evolution, guiding it. They found evidence that Earth's environment had been artificially enhanced to maximize evolutionary pressure. The ice ages were not natural. The extinction events were not random. The planet was being managed like a laboratory. Chen felt dizzy. Around the table, the other council members sat in stunned silence. For what purpose? She whispered. The archivist turned all its eyes toward her. To create warriors. The most efficient, relentless, adaptable warriors the galaxy has ever seen. To create humanity. That is impossible, the president said, but its voice carried no conviction. Is it? The archivist displayed more data. Consider the facts. Earth has experienced dozens of mass extinction events. Each time life recovered and became more competitive, more aggressive, more efficient at survival. The planet's climate has swung between extremes, forcing organisms to adapt or die. The predator-prey balance is unlike any other world. And somehow, despite all this, one species emerged that could think, plan, and create technology. A species that carries all the benefits of this harsh evolution, but also possesses intelligence and creativity. The archivist paused, letting the information sink in. The first ones found one more piece of information before they left. They detected similar installations around 17 other planets in the galaxy. All of them were death worlds, harsh beyond measure. They theorized that the Forerunners were conducting experiments, creating different types of warriors on different worlds, testing which environment would produce the best results. And Earth won, Throck said quietly. We won the test. Perhaps, the archivist replied. Or perhaps Earth is simply the only experiment that survived this long. The other 17 planets show no signs of intelligent life. Either their experiments failed, or something destroyed them. Chen stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You are telling me that my entire species, our entire history, everything we are, was designed by some ancient aliens as part of a war experiment. No. I do not accept that. Humans have free will. We make our own choices. We are not weapons. But you are, Ambassador, the archivist said, not unkindly. Whether you were intentionally created or simply evolved in a managed environment, the result is the same. Humanity is the product of 2 million years of enforced survival pressure. You are exactly what the Forerunners wanted, a species that never gives up, never stops fighting, never breaks under pressure. Your entire psychology is built around overcoming impossible odds. The archivist displayed human history on the screen. Wars, empires rising and falling. humanity surviving plague, famine, natural disasters, the atomic bombs, the near-extinction events, and every time, humanity recovered and came back stronger. Look at your own history, the archivist said. You nearly destroyed yourselves with nuclear weapons. Any rational species would have stopped, would have found peace out of pure survival instinct. But humans did not. You continued to build weapons, continued to compete, continued to push boundaries. You went to space not for resources or exploration, but because you refused to be contained on one world. You are a species that sees the impossible and treats it as a challenge. That is called courage, Chen said, her voice shaking. That is called hope. Yes, the archivist agreed. And it is also what makes you terrifying. Because courage and hope can drive a species to extraordinary achievements, or to conquer everything they encounter. The Kelvin military section's communication device suddenly activated. Throck moved to the side to take the message privately, but Chen could see the color draining from his scales. He returned to the table looking shaken. Council President, Throck said formally, I must report an urgent matter. My government has just sent word. 3 days ago, long-range scanners detected massive gravitational anomalies at the edge of the galaxy. We believed it was a sensor malfunction. It was not. We have now confirmed with multiple stations. Something very large is approaching our galaxy from dark space. Multiple objects, each one the size of a planet. The chamber erupted in voices. The president called for order, its light flashing with urgent patterns. What are they? The president demanded. We do not know, Throck admitted. But we have seen this signature before, in the Forerunner data. The ancient warnings speak of an enemy from beyond, something the Forerunners were preparing to fight. We always thought it was a myth, but the signatures match perfectly. The archivist remained still, multiple eyes reflecting the light from the displays. So that is why, it said softly. That is why the Forerunners created the installations. They knew something was coming. They tried to create defenders, and Earth was their most successful project. Chen felt the weight of every eye in the room focusing on her. Understanding dawned on faces around the table, along with a new emotion, desperate hope mixed with terror. You were not created to conquer us, the president said slowly. You were created to protect us, to protect the galaxy from whatever is coming. Or, Throck said, his voice hard, humanity was created to fight a war, and now that war is about to arrive. Either way, we have a choice to make. Do we trust them? Do we trust that these predators from Earth will fight for us rather than against us? The archivist spoke again. That is not the only question. Consider this. If the Forerunners created humanity as warriors, and those warriors are only now reaching technological maturity, then the enemy was expected to arrive in this time period. The Forerunners timed everything perfectly, which means whatever is coming, it was always meant to face humanity. The question is whether humanity is ready. Chen looked around the room at the alien faces, seeing fear, suspicion, and desperate calculation. Earth's true name was spreading through the galaxy's consciousness, the world designed to create perfect warriors. And now those warriors would be tested. I need to contact Earth immediately, Chen said. They need to know what you have told me. They need to know what might be coming. Of course, the president said. But Ambassador Chen, understand this. The galaxy is watching. If humanity proves to be the warriors the Forerunners intended, you will be welcomed as saviors. But if humanity proves to be conquerors, if you use this crisis to seize power, the entire council will unite against you. We will destroy Earth before we let you destroy us. Chen met the president's gaze steadily. My people did not ask to be created as weapons. We did not ask for this responsibility. But I know humans, and I know what we do when faced with impossible challenges. We survive, we fight, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Not because we were programmed to do it, but because we choose to. She straightened her uniform and moved toward the door. Send me everything you have on these gravitational anomalies. Earth's defense forces will need all available data. And coup. The news reached Earth within hours. By the time Ambassador Chen's encrypted transmission finished downloading to the United Nations headquarters in New Geneva, the entire planet was already changing. Fleet Admiral Okonkwo had not waited for official authorization. She had seen the archivist's data, read the ancient warnings, and understood what was coming. Within 6 hours of receiving Chen's message, every human military installation in Sol system went to maximum alert. The response was not what the Council expected. While other species held emergency sessions and debated responses, humanity acted. Shipyards that had been building commercial vessels immediately retooled for military production. Colony stations began fortifying their defenses. Research facilities that had been focused on peaceful technologies shifted to weapons development. And across Earth, something ancient stirred in the human consciousness. The survival instinct that had carried them through ice ages, plagues, and wars. On the bridge of the UNSS Persistence, orbiting Mars, Fleet Admiral Okonkwo stood before a holographic display showing real-time updates from across human space. She was a tall woman with dark skin and gray-streaked hair, her uniform bearing the scars of 3 different conflicts. She had fought in the border wars, survived the Titan Rebellion, and commanded the fleet during the First Contact incident. But nothing in her experience had prepared her for this. "Status report," she commanded. Her tactical officer, Commander Park, pulled up the latest data. "All 12 Perseus arm colonies have activated defense protocols. Earth's orbital platforms are fully armed and operational. Mars' defense grid is at 100%. The Luna shipyards have accelerated production schedules. They estimate 40 new frigates combat-ready within 3 months." "Not fast enough," Okonkwo muttered. "What about the Council?" "Mixed responses, Admiral. The Kelvin Empire has recalled its expansion fleet and is fortifying its core worlds. The Ethereal Communion is attempting diplomatic overtures. They believe they can communicate with the approaching entities. The Zephyr Collective has gone silent. We think they are evacuating their frontier systems." Okonkwo shook her head. They were afraid. Every species in the Council was reacting with fear, pulling back, hiding. It was the rational response to an unknown threat. But humans had never been very good at rational responses. And the data from the Council? The biological scans of these entities? Park's expression darkened. "Preliminary analysis is disturbing, Admiral. Whatever these things are, they are not ships. They are not technology. They are alive, but not in any way we understand. They seem to exist partially outside normal space. Council scientists are calling them reality devourers, because every sensor reading suggests they consume energy, matter, and dimensional stability itself. How do you kill something like that?" "We don't know yet. Council weapons have been ineffective in preliminary engagements. Energy weapons pass through them. Projectiles are absorbed. Even nuclear weapons seem to feed them rather than damage them." Okonkwo was quiet for a moment, staring at the holographic projection of the approaching threat. Dozens of massive signatures, each one moving toward the galaxy at impossible speeds. The Council estimated first contact in 6 months. 6 months to prepare for an enemy that could not be killed by conventional means. Her communication console chimed. Ambassador Chen's face appeared on the screen, looking exhausted. "Admiral, I am being recalled to Earth for emergency consultations. But before I leave, I need to tell you something. The Council is afraid of us. They see these ancient records, they learn about the Forerunner experiments, and they believe we are weapons. But they are also hoping we are weapons, hoping we can save them from what is coming. We are being given access to classified Council technology, intelligence data, even restricted research. They are desperate." "Are you saying they trust us now?" Okonkwo asked. "No," Chen replied. "They need us. That is different from trust. And Admiral, there is something else. Some Council members are already suggesting that if we cannot stop these entities, we should be eliminated. Better to destroy humanity before we either fail to save them or succeed and become too powerful to control." Okonkwo smiled grimly. "Let them try." The transmission ended and Okonkwo turned back to her tactical display. The enormity of the situation was finally sinking in. Humanity had been created as warriors, designed by an ancient species to fight a war against an enemy from beyond the galaxy. 2 million years of preparation, of enforced evolution, of survival pressure, and now the test was coming. "Commander Park," she said quietly, "send a message to all human military installations, all colonies, all ships. Tell them the truth. Tell them what the archivists discovered, what Earth really is, what we really are. Humanity deserves to know. Admiral, that information could cause panic, mass fear, social disruption, or it could do the opposite, Okonkwo countered. Humans do not break when faced with truth. We break when we are lied to. Send the message. 12 hours later, every human being in the solar system and beyond knew the truth about Earth. The reactions varied. Some people were horrified, learning that their entire existence was part of an experiment. Others were angry, feeling manipulated by ancient forces beyond their control. But most people, the vast majority, simply accepted it and asked the same question: what do we do now? The answer came from unexpected places. Scientists who had been studying peaceful applications of technology began designing weapons. Artists created propaganda posters showing humans standing against the darkness. Engineers volunteered for dangerous assignments in the shipyards. And most significantly, the old divisions that had plagued humanity for millennia began to fade. National boundaries, religious differences, political ideologies, all of it became secondary to survival. The Council watched this transformation with growing unease. They had expected chaos, panic, perhaps even human civilization collapsing under the weight of this revelation. Instead, humanity unified faster than any species in recorded history. 3 months passed. The approaching entities, now officially designated as devourers by Council scientists, continued their advance. Long-range observations revealed their true horror. They were not ships or creatures in any traditional sense. They were mobile singularities, beings that existed by consuming reality itself. Where they passed, space became unstable, stars flickered, and entire planetary systems vanished without trace. The Kelvin Empire made first contact with the Devourers at the frontier world of Kelvin Prime, their oldest colony and symbolic heart of their civilization. The Kelvins had prepared defensive positions, massive energy shields, and weapon platforms that could destroy entire moons. They were confident in their military superiority. The confidence lasted exactly 47 minutes. Admiral Okonkwo watched the battle feeds with her command staff, transmitted from Kelvin observation posts light years away. The Devourer appeared at the edge of the system, a darkness that bent light around it. The Kelvin fleet opened fire with everything they had: plasma cannons, fusion missiles, particle beams that could cut through planets. The Devourer absorbed it all. Every weapon, every attack simply fed its hunger. It moved toward Kelvin Prime, slow and inevitable, and where it passed, Kelvin ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged. They vanished, erased from reality as if they had never been. The Kelvins evacuated what population they could and fled. Kelvin Prime, a world that had stood for 8,000 years, was consumed in less than a day. The Devourer moved on to the next system, leaving nothing behind but twisted space and radiation. The Council emergency session that followed was chaos. Military commanders demanded action. Diplomats tried to organize coordinated responses. Scientists admitted they had no idea how to fight these entities. And through it all, one question kept being asked: where were the humans? Ambassador Chen sat in her small section, watching the panic spread. She knew where humanity's fleets were. They were not hiding. They were not evacuating. They were moving toward the threat, not away from it. Her communication device activated. Fleet Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared, and Chen could hear alarm klaxons in the background. Ambassador, this is a courtesy notification. I am taking the human fleet to Kelvin Prime. Admiral, Kelvin Prime is gone. There is nothing there. No, Okonkwo corrected. The Devourer is there, and we need to test something. Chen felt her heart sink. Test what? Whether we can actually hurt these things. The Council races have been throwing energy at them. High-technology weapons designed to be efficient and clean. But humans learned a long time ago that sometimes the best weapon is not the most advanced one. Sometimes you need something crude, something primal. Admiral, you cannot be serious. This is suicide. Okonkwo smiled, and there was something fierce in her expression, something ancient and dangerous. Maybe. But Ambassador, consider this. The Forerunners spent 2 million years preparing humanity for this fight. They made us stubborn, aggressive, and too stupid to quit even when we should. They made us survivors who refused to accept defeat. So maybe, just maybe, they knew something the Council does not. Maybe the way to fight reality-eating nightmares from beyond space is not with advanced technology and rational tactics. Maybe you fight them with warriors who are too crazy to know when they are beaten. The transmission ended. Chen sat in silence for a moment, then stood and walked to the council pure. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kelvin Prime system, and what they saw defied comprehension. The planet that had been there was simply gone, replaced by a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to pull light into itself. Stars in the background appeared distorted, bent around the devourer like water circling a drain. Space itself looked wrong, twisted as if reality had been stretched too thin. On the bridge of the UNSS Persistence, Fleet Admiral Okonkwo stood before her command console, watching the sensor readings fluctuate wildly. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, each person knowing they might be seeing their last battle. Range to target? Okonkwo asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, Admiral, Commander Park replied. The devourer is moving away from us, heading deeper into Kelvin territory. It does not seem to have noticed our arrival. Good. How many ships did we bring? 43 vessels, Admiral. 18 frigates, 12 destroyers, 8 cruisers, 3 carriers, and 2 battleships. Plus the Persistence, Okonkwo nodded. It was not much compared to the massive fleets the Council races could field. But humanity had never relied on numbers. They relied on determination and the willingness to try things that seemed insane. All ships, this is Admiral Okonkwo. Today we face an enemy that has never been defeated. An enemy that Council weapons cannot harm. An enemy that exists to consume everything we are and everything we might become. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Council species are afraid. They are retreating, abandoning worlds, preparing for extinction. But we are not the Council. We are human. We were forged on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages and plagues. We survived our own worst impulses. We learned to fight not because we wanted to, but because everything else was already fighting us. She straightened, her voice growing stronger. The Forerunners created us as warriors. For 2 million years, Earth tested us, shaped us, made us into survivors who refused to quit. Today we find out if that was enough. Today we discover if humanity can do what no other species has done. All ships move to attack formation. Weapons free. Show this thing what it means to fight creatures from the predator world. The human fleet accelerated toward the devourer. As they closed the distance, the entity finally seemed to notice them. The darkness shifted, expanding, reaching toward the approaching ships like a living thing. Sensors screamed warnings as gravitational forces began pulling at the fleet. All ships fire at will, Okonkwo commanded. The fleet opened up with everything they had. Magnetic accelerator cannons launched projectiles at relativistic speeds. Missile pods released swarms of warheads. Energy weapons carved through space. The Council races had tried these same weapons and failed. But the humans had made modifications based on one simple principle. If you cannot hurt something with technology, try hitting it harder with less refined violence. The projectiles were not sophisticated armor-piercing rounds. They were solid slugs of depleted uranium, moving at percentages of light speed, carrying nothing but raw kinetic force. The missiles were not precision munitions. They were crude fusion bombs designed for maximum explosive yield. And the energy weapons were not carefully tuned beams. They were brute force plasma cannons that threw superheated matter at temperatures that could melt planets. The barrage hit the devourer, and for the first time since these entities had entered the galaxy, something changed. The darkness rippled, contracted, pulled back slightly from the impacts. It was not damage, not really, but it was a reaction. The devourer had noticed them. We got its attention, Park said, a mix of excitement and terror in his voice. Good, Okonkwo replied. Now let us see if we can do more than annoy it. Launch the Ragnarok missiles, Park hesitated. Admiral, those are experimental. We have never tested them in combat. The radiation yield alone will contaminate this entire system. The system is already dead, Commander. Fire them. 6 massive missiles launched from the battleships, each one carrying a payload that made standard fusion weapons look like firecrackers. They were thermonuclear devices enhanced with exotic matter, designed by human scientists who had studied the Forerunner data and made a terrible calculation. If the devourers consumed energy, maybe the solution was to give them more energy than they could handle, an overdose of destruction. The missiles streaked toward the devourer and detonated simultaneously. Space turned white. The explosion was so intense that half the sensors on the human ships burned out instantly. When the light faded, the crew of the Persistence stared at their screens in stunned silence. The devourer was still there, but it had changed. The darkness was flickering, unstable, like a flame struggling to stay lit. And at its core, something that might have been pain or confusion radiated outward in waves of distorted gravity. "We heard it," Park whispered. "We actually heard it." Okonkwo allowed herself a grim smile. The Council tried to fight these things with their advanced, clean technology. But sometimes the universe does not care about elegance. Sometimes you just need to hit something really hard and see what breaks. "All ships, continuous bombardment. Do not let it recover." The fleet poured fire into the wounded devourer. Projectiles, missiles, plasma, everything humanity had designed to destroy their enemies. The entity writhed and the darkness began to contract, pulling back from the onslaught. For the first time, it was retreating. But it was not alone. New contacts appeared on long-range sensors, dozens of them. More devourers, drawn by the distress of their wounded kin. They emerged from the darkness between stars, converging on the human fleet's position. "Admiral, we have incoming," Park said, his voice tight. 23 new contacts, all matching devourer signatures. "We cannot fight them all." Okonkwo looked at the tactical display, calculating odds and outcomes. The smart move would be to retreat, to report their findings to the Council and prepare a larger response. But retreating meant these entities would continue into Kelvin space, consuming worlds and killing billions, and something in her, something deep in her human DNA, rebelled against the idea of running. "Send a priority transmission to Earth and the Council," she said calmly. "Tell them we have confirmed that devourers can be damaged by sustained kinetic and nuclear bombardment. Tell them these things can be hurt, can be killed, but it takes weapons designed for maximum destructive force. Tell them to stop thinking like advanced civilizations and start thinking like survivors." "Admiral, what about us?" Okonkwo looked at her crew, seeing the fear in their eyes but also seeing something else. Determination. They knew what was coming. They knew they were about to die, but not one of them suggested retreat. "We do what the Forerunners designed us to do," she said quietly. "We hold the line. We buy time for the Council to prepare. We show these entities that humanity does not run, does not surrender, does not give up even when faced with impossible odds." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the Admiral. We are about to be engaged by superior enemy forces. Our orders are to inflict maximum damage and prevent these entities from advancing further into inhabited space. We may not survive this engagement, but we will ensure that every devourer that faces us learns why Earth is called the Predator World. We will show them what happens when they hunt creatures that evolved by being the best hunters in the galaxy. For Earth, for humanity, for every species counting on us." The crew responded with a roar of defiance that echoed through every ship in the fleet. They turned their vessels toward the approaching darkness and accelerated to attack speed. The Council races, watching through long-range observation posts, saw something they had never witnessed before. A species charging directly into overwhelming odds without hesitation, without fear, with nothing but determination and rage. The battle that followed lasted 6 hours. The human fleet fought with desperate creativity, using tactics that other species would never consider. They rammed damaged ships into devourers, turning their vessels into kinetic missiles. They detonated their own reactors at point-blank range. They fired weapons until the barrels melted, then ejected them as makeshift projectiles. And through it all, they refused to break, refused to run, refused to die quietly. When it was over, only 5 human ships remained functional, including the Persistence, heavily damaged and barely holding together. But 17 devourers had been destroyed or driven off, their dark forms dissipating into radiation and scattered matter. The surviving entities retreated into deep space, fleeing from an enemy that should not have been able to harm them. Admiral Okonkwo sat in her damaged command chair, watching the tactical display. Her ship was dying around her, fires burning in 3 decks, the reactor dangerously unstable. But they had done it. They had proven that the devourers could be defeated. "Get me the Council," she said, her voice hoarse from breathing smoke. Ambassador Chen's face appeared on the screen, tears running down her cheeks. "Admiral, we watched everything. The entire Council saw your battle. They saw what you did." "Good," Okonkwo said. "Then they know these things can be killed. Tell them to start building weapons. Big, crude, violent weapons. Tell them to stop being advanced and start being vicious.